I thought buying a car right now in 2024 would be an easy choice, but the more I'm learning about the latest car technologies, the harder time I'm having actually deciding what the right thing is to buy. For example, EVs seem cheap to run and fun to drive, but their resale seems horrible. Plus, I'm discovering things I never considered about them, and it's giving me new things to think about, like how they can chew through tires, and how the faster you drive, the less range you get. Now, straight up hybrids seem great, 1,000 kilometers plus on a tank. Sure, maybe they offer less exciting performance, but the technology seems reliable and the resale seems good. What about plug-in hybrids? They seem to offer the best of both worlds, but does the added upfront cost really make them worth the extra sticker price? The battery makes them heavier and slightly more inefficient than just straight up hybrids. So is it just a worse EV and a worse hybrid? Choosing the right vehicle is surprisingly complicated because each technology offers slightly different benefits. And if you don't know the exact differences between them, you run the risk of choosing the wrong one and potentially wasting thousands of dollars. So today, I'm going to share what I've been learning about each of the new car technologies, what I think about each one, then I'm going to bust out some math and see if we can really map out how much each one will cost over the years. So by the end of this video, you'll either know exactly what the best car is to buy for yourself, or you'll be more confused than ever. Let's get into it. Let's start off with acknowledging the fact that having to fill up at a gas station is annoying, right? It's expensive, it sucks when it's cold outside, it feels archaic. I feel like in the not too distant future we'll be like,
remember when we used to go to gas stations? Everybody touches the same handle after scratching their butts. Ooh, it's so nasty.
Now while it is annoying having to use gas stations, they are everywhere and it's dang convenient. Charging stations will continue to pop up, but depending on where you live, they might not be as available or as convenient as gas stations, which hey, might be a big reason alone to consider a hybrid instead. Knowing gas stations are everywhere offers a kind of freedom that you can go wherever you want, even though you probably won't. So the big three technologies worth considering right now are straight up hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and full EVs. Let's go over each one talking about the pros and cons. Straight up hybrids use a combination of gas and electric motors and are just great on fuel compared to gas engines. Seems like they average over 1,000 kilometers to a tank, but you are still 100% reliant on going to gas stations. That's kind of annoying. The upside of hybrids is the technology has been around for quite some time and it's refined. Manufacturers know what they're doing by now. Heck, Toyota hybrids are still tough to get right now because they're in such high demand. These cars hold their value quite well, and that's important as I'll talk about in a minute. You don't get the crazy torque of an electric and you don't get the convenience of charging it at home, but you get reliability and fuel savings compared to gas cars, and out of the three, they seem like the best option when driving long distances. You can simply go the furthest on a full tank without stopping. Then if you do stop, it takes what, like 2 minutes to fill up the tank with gas before you're off again? If you're going on a long road trip, a straight up hybrid would just be the best for that. But you know what's also annoying? Oil changes. Just saying. They do require frequent servicing. Plug-in hybrids are also very efficient even when they run out of battery, but they are heavier than their non-plug-in siblings due to their bigger battery. And if you're driving long distances where you can't charge it up, you don't reap the benefits of having the big battery anyway. So straight up hybrids might be the best choice for a lot of people who drive long distances or have longer commutes where you fall outside of the EV range of the plug-ins. But if you're just zipping around town running errands or live close to work, then that's where plug-ins really shine. We drive 20 to 50 kilometers on average per day, and being able to run solely on electricity seems like a no-brainer, as I'll math out in a bit, because if you charge your vehicle at home, it's very cheap compared to gas. Where I live, it costs our car about $100 to fill up the tank with gas. The equivalent cost of electricity is $8. Yeah, 8%. Huge savings, which means we would benefit most from a plug-in hybrid or a straight up EV. The idea of a plug-in is nice because the Prius Prime, for example, which is what I'm considering, gets 64 kilometers in EV mode. That's enough for my daily needs, and I can charge it every night at home for cheap, like $1 a night. But then combined with the gas motor, it gets over 1,000 kilometers on a tank. So if we ever need to go somewhere far, like to visit my family that lives about 400 kilometers away, geez, we could even be able to get there and back on one tank without stopping. That's nuts. I love that. I love the idea being able to still stop at nasty old convenient gas stations if needed. So not only do they get the benefit of being cheap around town by running on electricity, they also can go the distance and take advantage of gas stations, which are everywhere. Now here's the best part. Plug-in hybrids qualify for rebates, and that's where the conversation really starts to get interesting. Rebates are incentives to get people to buy into new tech, right? It's basically free money. I like free money. Sure, you might save $5,000 when buying the newer tech, but oftentimes newer tech costs at least $5,000 more, so it's sort of a wash. But in this case, you're getting a rebate on something that is not just newer tech. The plug-in hybrid still mostly uses tried and true hybrid technology, so that is a great reason right there to consider a plug-in over a full EV, in my opinion. You get free money with less risk. So if you get a plug-in, you would be saving a lot of money in the short term on fuel if you're able to charge it every night at home and run in EV mode most of the time. But if you have a longer commute and need to fill up with gas more often, well then maybe the extra cost of the plug-in might not be worth it over the hybrid. Plus you still need oil changes with the plug-in. Ugh. Let's talk straight electric vehicles. It might sound like I'm on team plug-ins so far, but there's something EVs offer that plug-ins don't. Last week I drove the Ioniq 6 and it was a lot of fun. It brought a smile to my face. A car like that, or a Tesla, would make doing mundane things like running errands more fun. Is that worth anything to you? It's not to my wife, but it is to me. Not only are EVs fun for around town, they are super cheap on energy if you're able to charge it at home, which for us would be 99% of the time. The longest trip we usually take is about 150 kilometers away. So if a 450 kilometer range EV can get us there and back over a day or two without even stopping, why would we need anything else? That would be enough. Plus there are chargers available if we need to top up along the way. Though it sounds like you sometimes have to wait around, and that could be annoying. But with the right planning, I mean, whatever. I do like the idea of not having to get oil changes. There are downsides to EV though, some big ones. They are heavy, and since they have a lot of torque, I've heard they can chew through tires 20 to 30% faster. They have unknown long-term durability, and there are huge variables with things like the weather and speed, which dramatically affect their range. I think the scary thing is, new tech is right around the corner, things like solid-state batteries, which would almost double electric range. So how much will that Tesla you buy this year be worth in 10 years when we will soon have newer EVs that can go 1,000 kilometers plus on a tank? Here's the thing though, if current EVs suit most of your needs now, then who cares if it has double or even triple the range in the future? Would that be nice? Sure. But if 99% of the time the current EVs would do everything you need, why not be happy with that? Well, price is a big factor, right? They ain't cheap. Let me ask you this. If you buy a car and plan to keep it for say 10 years, do you think the car owes you anything once it's fully paid off? Would you be sad if the vehicle you bought now was essentially worth $0 then, even if it still runs fine? Because that's what it feels like will happen if I buy an EV now. I mean, this is why a lot of people buy Toyotas, right? With good maintenance, they sell for top dollar years later. And this is why you see people blowing up their Teslas if they have to replace the battery, because once the battery is kaput, it usually costs more to replace than the vehicle is worth. Yeesh. The thing is, your car isn't worth $0 in 10 years. But even if that $60,000 Tesla is in good condition in 10 years from now and still runs fine with the battery at 70% efficiency, how easy do you think it will be to sell? How many people are buying 2014 Teslas in 2024? Would you want to buy one if the battery cost you $20,000 to $25,000 on top of the used price? Probably not. I worry if I buy an EV now, in 10 years, I won't be able to sell it. Whether or not it still runs well almost doesn't even matter. Let's talk more about fuel costs. I'm sure energy and gas will increase in price in the future, so I'll talk about things with how they are right now. So these numbers will be very general, very crude numbers. Don't take them literally. We fill up the gas tank of our Hyundai Santa Fe about 3 times a month, spending on average $300 on gas for about 1,500 kilometers of distance. The way electric cars work is they use kilowatts. An average Tesla Model 3, for example, stores 57.5 kilowatts, where you get around 500 kilometers of distance, give or take. Where I live, they charge up to 14 cents per kilowatt. So if we were to switch to that, it would cost us $8 of energy each charge, which would be $24 a month compared to the $300 of our gas car. Our gas car costs us $3,600 a year to run, $18,000 over 5 years, and $36,000 over 10 years. A straight up EV would cost $300 a year, $1,500 over 5 years, and $3,000 over 10 years if we always charged it at home. And hey, that number could easily be double or triple my calculations, but even then, it's still pretty insane savings. So by switching from gas to electric, we saved $33,000 in fuel over 10 years. Interesting. But if the car costs $33,000 more, then who cares, right? Well, that's where incentives come in. Also, that's $33,000 more than our current gas car, so it's not really fair to compare an electric to the straight up gas engine. Let's math out a hybrid's fuel costs over the years. Let's use the 2024 Toyota Prius as an example. It has a 43-liter tank, which averages 1,000 kilometers. With current gas prices, this would cost us $86 to fill up. I would need to fill it up 1.5 times a month, which is $130 a month, $1,500 a year, $7,800 over 5 years, and $15,500 over 10 years. And remember, this hybrid doesn't qualify for incentives. So even though the Tesla Model 3 costs $20,000 more than the Prius, you save $12,000 in gas versus the Prius over 10 years and get another at least $5,000 up to $9,000 back from rebates. They're almost the same price at this point, right? Well, yeah, but no. But before I expand on that, where does the plug-in fit in when it comes to fuel costs? I think to be safe, I'll put it directly in the middle of the hybrid and the EV, though I suspect in our case, it will be on the lower end. I think it's safe to assume it could cost us $100 a month, $1,200 a year, $6,000 over 5 years, or $12,000 over 10 years to fuel a plug-in. The Prius Primes start at $43,000, and again, this does qualify for the $5,000 rebate, bringing that down to $38,000. It might cost us $10,000 more to operate over 10 years than the Tesla does, and does need annoying oil changes, but it costs $20,000 less upfront and has a much higher resale value than the Tesla. Let's break that all down. Here's the total cost over 10 years for each car. And I know this doesn't include taxes or insurance or maintenance or anything like that, but I'm gonna share anyways. So for us in Canada, not including taxes, the Prius is $41,000. It does not qualify for rebates, and over the course of 10 years would cost us $15,500 to fuel, bringing it to a total of $56,500 over 10 years. The Prius Prime is $43,000. It does qualify for the $5,000 federal rebate, which brings it down to $38,000. There are additional rebates depending on your income, so look into that if you're considering these vehicles. So if it costs us $12,000 to fuel the plug-in over 10 years, that brings the total cost to $50,000, $6,000 cheaper than the Prius. Interesting. Let's check out the Tesla. It costs $61,000 up front, with the $5,000 rebate bringing us down to $56,000. It might cost $3,000 to $4,000 to fuel it over 10 years, bringing the total cost to around $60,000. So the Tesla works out to cost only $10,000 more than the plug-in, despite it having a sticker price of over $20,000 more. However, after 10 years of ownership, an important thing to consider is how much will those vehicles be worth then? You're $60,000 in with your Tesla, but do you think anyone will want to buy it privately in 10 years? Do you know how much batteries cost to replace in those? I've heard of numbers of $20,000 to $30,000. And in 10 years with newer solid state batteries available, do you think people are going to want to buy a used Tesla, then spend the money to replace the battery with outdated tech? I mean, there's a good chance the battery might still be fine, but that's a big risk if you ask me. Whereas a 10-year-old Prius, geez, those batteries cost what, a few $1,000s to replace? And you have a Toyota badge on it as well. There's a good chance that the hybrid will just keep going and going. I mean, there's a reason taxis use those cars. And worst case scenario, like I said, the battery gives out or you need to fix the engine, it's not gonna cost the same amount as battery would in a full EV. Again, I'm not saying the Tesla battery will be dead after 10 years. Maybe it'll still be at 70 to 80% efficiency, which is not bad. Maybe that'll last another 10 years where it gets down to 40% efficiency, but again, still not bad for getting around town. But if you need to sell it or trade it in, you might get squat for it. I guess what I want you to consider is this. If you spent $50,000 or $60,000 or whatever on a vehicle now, in 10 years, would you rather your car still be worth $25,000 and you could actually be able to sell it? Or would you rather have had 10 years of having fun, not going to gas stations, not getting oil changes, etc.? What is that worth to you? I honestly don't think there's a right answer for everybody. And I think depending on how you answer that question will give you your answer to what type of car you should get. If I had to pick something using my logical brain at this very moment, I would probably choose a plug-in, most likely a Toyota. I think other brands are worth considering depending on the features you want, but for my family, it would be the Toyota Prius Prime or maybe the RAV4 Prime. I think that's the smartest choice based on how we use our vehicles. And over the course of 10 years, I'm confident those vehicles would still be worth something. But on the other hand, I'm not a very logical person. I am emotional and I value fun. The YOLO part of my brain thinks it would be better to spend $65,000 on a Tesla and have a blast ripping around in that. But I really fear in 10 years, I just won't be able to get much back out of it. So at the end of the day, what do you value more? Saving money or having fun? Since I don't drive that much, I think saving money is more important. And based on the fact that new EV battery tech is right around the corner, that means selling the current EVs in 10 years from now might likely be very difficult. So despite having great incentives, I just don't know if I fully trust EV tech where it's at right now. Plug-in hybrids get the benefit of having some exciting new EV tech in combination with older, more refined technology that's been around for 20 plus years, and they qualify for government rebates. Plus in BC where I live, since I make less than $80,000 a year on my stay-at-home dad / small YouTuber salary, I qualify for an additional $2,000 rebate, bringing the total rebate for plugins to $7,000. Not too shabby. One of the reasons I wanted to make this video is to remind you that incentives won't always be around. I think for my family, a $7,000 rebate and being able to run on electric power for most of our daily driving needs, but also having the freedom to drive down to California on gas alone if we want, is the smartest choice to make. Sure, we will still need to service the gas engine, which is annoying, but we will have some resale value down the road, and this will be a vehicle that my kids might be able to have one day when I upgrade to what, a hydrogen car in 10 years? Sodium ion, solid state battery? Who knows, right? I know I didn't talk about the price of chargers, repairs, or things like insurance, or the price of the vehicles with taxes, but I still think what I shared today is worth talking about and thinking about. There's always new tech around the corner. It's tempting to wait for it, but sometimes you need to make a decision now. How much value do you put on fun? It's okay if it's a lot. Or how much range do you really need? Maybe a Nissan Leaf and its tiny range is enough for your family to run all your errands and save you tens of thousands of dollars over the years. Then you get a cheap van or a bigger SUV for the family trips. Heck, maybe even just rent a vehicle for those trips when you need it. You'd probably save tons of money that way. And at the end of the day, I think saving money is really important. I think all three technologies are a good choice depending on your needs. The hybrids are still awesome for those who drive a lot. Then the plugins and EVs are both solid choices for those like me who maybe don't drive a ton. I think the EVs are more fun, but with technology moving so fast, it's hard to justify the savings in fuel versus the resale value in the not too distant future. Plugins seem like a safe, reliable choice that, even in the worst case scenario, won't absolutely crush your bank account if the battery dies, like it would if the battery died on a full EV. As for me, what am I going to get? Well, I feel like I'm torn between these two. I'll let you know when I decide. What do you think? Do you agree with me? What would you buy if you did buy something now? Or what did you buy? And are you still happy with your choice? I know I didn't really talk about the other brands out there because I think Toyota and Tesla really are the cars you should compare whatever you are thinking about getting to. They are both the best in their fields, and you should have a good reason to not buy them. One of the craziest things I realized after I started test driving EVs was, yes, they are fun to drive, but they are not as great on the highway as they are around town. Their efficiency kind of goes out the window. I'm gonna make a video talking about that and a bunch of other surprising things I learned about EVs, and I'll put it here when it's ready, so be sure to check that out. Otherwise, here's what YouTube thinks you wanna watch next. If you're able to support the channel with likes, comments, and subs, I would really appreciate it if you do that. It's the only way my channel will grow. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Sad Life.